Jesse James has had a pretty talented couple of seasons for the Pittsburgh Steelers. I mean, granted, probably to this point, his biggest claim to fame was whether he did or didn't catch that one ball against the Patriots. I mean, that and getting assassinated by the coward Robert Ford. But there's a lot of things he does well. He's a ferocious blocker and great in the receiving game, and here's a good example of that. Those are the routes that the Pittsburgh Steelers are going to be running on the top half of the screen, and that's where James is on the screen. This is a 3rd down and 2, so he's running a flat route, and it seems like it should be a great way to pick up a couple of yards. It's probably not going to go for a huge gain, but that's okay. You're only trying to get the 1st down here, so you're only trying to pick up a couple of yards. So now at this point, he actually is kind of open, but Roethlisberger isn't looking towards him. The Steelers have a plethora of receivers, and he's looking somewhere else at first, and so by the time he actually does look over to Jesse James, he's not really that open. His assigned defender was able to get over and make sure he plays tight coverage, and now James just isn't open. Roethlisberger is going to do a great job of rolling around in the pocket and making sure he can bide some time, and so what do you do if you're Jesse James? Well, now it's a scramble drill, so try to get open. He's basically just going to run downfield and ends up getting very open. This actually turns into a big play despite the fact that it was totally not designed to be a big play. It's a great play from Jesse James. I mean, he just didn't quit, and I love that in a player, a guy who's really going to play to the whistle. This next play is going to be actually a pretty interesting one. It's going to be a cover 3 zone, but not in a typical way. Really the guy to watch here is that Chiefs defender right there, because typically if there's just one safety back, you'd expect him to cover up that zone right there. But instead, Kansas City is actually doing something a little bit different, and he'll be covering that zone instead, and that's where all the other Chiefs will be covering. You'll see why this matters in a second, because at first Jesse James is running a curl route right there, and it seems like it is a little bit in the gap in coverage. Although what's key here is that after the ball is snapped, it's going to seem like the gap is a lot wider. I mean, as of right now, James is getting ready to cut, and it appears that there is going to be a huge gap right there. Roethlisberger isn't expecting that safety to crash in, and this is now actually a very dangerous play for the Steelers. It's probably a throw you don't want Roethlisberger to make because it is a pretty tight window. However, James is big enough that he's able to leap up and make the grab. That's kind of one of the things you gotta like about Jesse James is his catch radius. I mean, he's 6'7", so he can't easily leap up and make those big catches. There's also plays like this, where it's a cover 3 zone, and that's where Jesse James is going to be running his route to. It's a pretty good route. I mean, it should be in the gap and coverages right there, and so it seems like on paper it should be a pretty good play to run if you're the Steelers. But as you see, as he does get to the end of his route, it's not really too open. I mean, in theory, if you were flying a drone, you would be able to drop a ball there, but the problem is that there are 2 Chiefs in front of him and another Chief further back. So while there is some separation, there just isn't a great angle for Roethlisberger to try to get the ball to James. But it is worth mentioning that the gap and coverage he's running through is basically before the safeties and the guys guarding the middle of the field. So if he just continues running his route, there will still be some space downfield. I mean, as of right now, there's nobody in that area, so that's where he's going to continue to run. This play took longer to develop than they had hoped for, however, he still was able to make the catch and it was a touchdown. I know some of you might be questioning a bit why I am praising his ability to catch the ball so highly. I mean, in his 4 seasons, he only has 1,189 yards, but one thing worth mentioning is just all the weapons the Steelers had around him. It's hard to get too many targets in that offense, but even despite that, he does do a very good job in those clutch situations like on 3rd down. He's a very good 3rd down receiving tight end. He has a good ability to pick up those short passes and even turn short passes into bigger passes. Like if you take a look at this one, for example, that's where he is on the screen. So typically you would think that if this is man coverage, it would be that Chief that's responsible for covering Jesse James. But instead, he's actually going to be rushing the passer, and it'll be that Chief over there that's going to be in charge of covering James. Well, that's actually good news for the Steelers, because James is running that route right there, meaning that he could get very open. He won't be very open deep down the field, but he will be very open a couple of yards down the field. Like as you see right now, once the play develops, he is wide open, but of course the problem is he's also pretty much at the line of scrimmage. Basically, it's a foot race here, but he does a very good job in this one. He makes sure he looks back and catches the ball, because of course you do have to catch the ball before anything else. But once he does catch the ball, he has enough speed to be able to run over and pick up a decent gain. It was a smart piece of running as well. I mean, he knew where he had to run and he ran straight through there. It was also a smart play because he knew where he had to run and he was able to run through exactly where he had to get to. He took the perfect angle to get as many yards as possible, and it was a good play by James. James is a relatively smart player, and I think this play will be another good example of that. It's a cover 1 hole, and what Pittsburgh is basically trying to do is have a rub route here, where they have a receiver running that route right there. Then when Jesse James runs his route, then hopefully in theory the Steeler who's running the first route can then sort of get in the way of that corner. You can't block him obviously because that's a penalty, but if you run your route you can't get in the way of him. So as of right now the contact is supposed to happen, however the Steeler there just isn't able to make enough contact. Obviously it's tough, you can't just run into the guy because that is a penalty, so you have to be a little bit careful. However the contact wasn't really able to happen on this one, and now there's very good coverage happening. So at this point James pretty much has been taken out of the play. There isn't a lot of room, and this isn't really his fault at all, just the routes weren't ran at the right time. But notice how even this late in the play, he still isn't quitting and is still trying to figure out a way to get open. He's going to cut back to the bottom half of the screen, which wasn't the part of this play, but he realizes that it would be open if he can do it. It results in a huge gain, all simply from Jesse James being aware of what's going on. This play is another interesting one. If you take a look at that Oakland Raider right there, he's in charge of covering the zone right in the middle of the screen. Basically the Oakland Raiders logo, that's what he's in charge of covering. And since Jesse James is running straight into that zone, this should mean that his route just isn't going to work out too well. But one thing worth noting is that even if you go in someone's zone, it still can be a good thing. I mean, it kind of becomes one-on-one coverage at that point. Of course, the reason why it's not quite one-on-one coverage is that guy doesn't have to worry about potentially you cutting out of the zone or just running straight down the field because he knows he'll have help in those directions. So unlike a typical curl route where the guy who's in charge of covering you would sometimes run deep expecting you to maybe run a go route, this way, at least in theory, the Raiders should be able to do a better job of cutting in quicker and being able to break up the play because he's in zone instead of man. So now if we take a look, he does have a bit of separation, but that Raider is fastly approaching. I mean, he does not have a ton of time to get ready and try to make the catch, and he's going to be having contact when he tries to make the catch. But this is just all about concentration. He stays focused and is ready for the ball to come, and even though there is contact, he's still able to make the grab. He is a very solid receiving tight end. He can definitely make some catches if you need him to. He has good hands and he's a decent route runner. But of course, if you're a tight end, there's two things you have to do. You have to be able to run routes, but also you have to be able to block, and Jesse James can absolutely block. Like on this one, it is man coverage, and there is a Cincinnati Bengals linebacker who is going up against one-on-one coverage against Jesse James, but James has a different assignment on this play. He's in charge of blocking that defensive end to slow him down, and then he'll break to the bottom half of the screen. Doing that should slow the defensive end down enough that when you do break to the bottom half of the screen, the tackle is in good position that he can then move over and get good hand placement. So now if we take a look when he is getting off of his block, he did a very good job. The tackle now has plenty of time to get over and make his block. That's all you have to do. You're not trying to pancake the guy. Really, all you're trying to do is just slow him down enough that the tackle has time to move over. Jesse James did his part, and now he can move over to running his route. But there is going to be one problem. There's another linebacker in the area, and now that linebacker is just going to try to create contact. It's a smart play by that Bengal, because Jesse James isn't farther than 1 yard from the line of scrimmage, so he can totally get blocked on this one. Being this close to the line of scrimmage, it's kind of like being in open waters. There's no laws at this point. You can do just about whatever you want. Obviously not whatever you want, but you can create contact, and that's exactly what that Bengal is going to do. Really, he wants to create the contact right there on Jesse James' chest, but look at what James does. He just moves his arms and sidesteps around him. From there, he's wide open and is able to make the catch for a decent gain. Nothing game-changing, but it was a really impressive play by James. I mean, he made his block well and then ran a great route. Not to mention, he avoided a contact from that linebacker, so truly a great play from Jesse James. But it's not just those types of blocks that James can pull off. Really, he can pull off any type of block. Like on this one, that's the blocking concept that Pittsburgh is going to be using, and if you notice, a lot of blocks are going through the right side of the screen. So take a look at Jesse James there, as he does have a one-on-one matchup with the edge rusher on the left side of the screen. That edge rusher reads that all the blocks are going through the right side of the screen, and so he's going to creep over through that right side of the screen. James sees this and sort of allows him to go in that direction. The reason why he's doing that is because now all James has to do is put his right hand right there, right on his assigned man's left side of his body, and then he can just push him out of the play. Since, of course, it is a run to the left side of the screen, not the right side of the screen. There's also plays like this, as you see right now. He is going up against Bradley Chubb right now, who is definitely no slouch. This is set up to be a run straight up the middle, so take a look what Jesse James is going to do here. He's basically going to attack. Unlike if it was a pass block where you kind of be patient and sort of let the opponent come to you, you want to go after your opponent on this situation. Because of that, it allows you to get as good of hand placement as possible, and if you take a look right now, he actually has his left hand around the side of Bradley Chubb. His hand is on the outside of Bradley Chubb's arm, not the inside, and that's key here because it's so much more difficult to try to get around someone if they have their arm on the outside as opposed to the inside. The disadvantage is it can allow you to get pushed back a little bit. However, Jesse James isn't really worried about that at all because it's going to be a run straight up the middle. If Chubb pushes James back, well, that would actually be a good thing for James since it is a run straight up the middle. So that's just not really something James has to worry about, and James is able to basically just take Chubb completely out of the play. There's also this one that I found very fascinating. Once again, it's not just a straight up block. He's going to block someone at first and then run out to run his route. But if you notice, take a look at how he's blocking. He's kind of blocking how he would run blocking, and that's because it is play action. The real key thing to watch here is look at how his arms are folded into the inside of that Broncos chest. Unlike the last play where he had it on the outside of his chest, now he has it on the inside of that Broncos chest, and the reason why is because he's trying to do something different than he did on that last play. He's going to want to get off this block quickly, so if he did put his arms around, it would make it very difficult for him to get around that block. Unlike the last time where he's just straight up blocking a guy, this time he's trying to get off the block quickly, so that's why he's doing this. This allows him to get a good solid push and give your tackle plenty of time to get in position, and it also does it while still allowing you to get to your route very quickly. That's kind of what Jesse James brings to the table. I mean, he's a great blocker and a very good pass catcher. I'm not going to call him Rob Gronkowski or anything like that because he's clearly not. However, he definitely is a true 3-down tight end and a very good player.